Order the meeting of the Municipal Authority, October 4, 2021. Roll call. Mark K.
Here.
And Kalika
Yes.
here. Maria Kane here. Okay, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 4.1 on the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda before you? Has everybody had a chance to review it?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Alika seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5.1, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 7, 2021 meeting?
Motion to approve.
Alika makes the motion. And can I have a second?
Second.
Mark seconds. And any comments or questions on the minutes?
No.
I reviewed them. I
They look
I wasn't here last time,
straightforward.
but yeah, they were good. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Hey, any announcements from, I don't have any, does
None for me.
anybody on your end, Rich? No, okay. Public comment, is there anybody from the public that wants to speak? If so, come up and there's a podium there, just give us your name and address and then make your comment.
First page. My copy is like, the second page is like the front.
And can you, I know you're giving, let the record reflect we're being given documents, but I don't have the name of the individual yet, so.
My name is Pam Lardison. I live at 4019 Fox Hill Lane. I've lived there probably close to 23 years. So we've been taxpayers to the township for 23 years. We signed
And
in
I'm sorry to bother you, Pam, but could you kindly tell me what date you took these pictures?
today, yesterday and today.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. All right, thank you. Go
Um,
ahead.
We signed an easement to have the public sewer come through our property to being basically good citizens, good neighbors, a little naively, not realizing the complete impact that it was going to have to our property. We have lost multiple trees. So you all got a email from me back in July that was about 12 pages long that also had a lot of pictures taken. So starting way back in February 2019, Dave Porter, some of the MacCombies, I believe Dave Chilson was there. We walked through the property, identified what trees had to come down. So there were 2 oaks in the front, one of which was our neighbor's, but is basically right beside our driveway, multiple trees in the back area, which was a wooded area. And it was purely woods. It was trees, a little bit of understory and leaves. We had a zip line back there when the kids were little. We had a little bike path back there. There was no maintenance for that property, part of the property. In April, the trees that were marked came down, permanently changing our home landscape backyard. The dog fence was broken for some reason. It was Brandywine who took the trees down, left like a 6-foot column on each side of our driveway so that every single time we drove in and out of our house, we saw the destruction that had taken place. And it was very distressing come spring. Obviously, those trees are not blooming. It was shocking, to say the least. End of May 2019, Joey came through. And despite multiple meetings prior to that, during it, that we were going to be taken care of, things were going to be fixed. Things were not fixed. In August, so that whole summer, we did not have use of our backyard. Come August, our septic system started leaking. Our septic system was very, very close to, and Dave Porter can attest to this, to where they came through. They physically did not touch it, but the pump that's in the septic fell off and broke, and we had to replace that. Joa didn't reimburse us for any of that. They claimed we didn't touch it. I can tell you, I felt my house shake. There were huge boulders left in our yard. Come September of 2019, the first restoration happened. We had to change kind of the landscape of the property. We used to have a stone wall at the bottom of our driveway. It was just kind of, again, sort of woods. And because Joa left such large rocks that the equipment that was coming through to do the restoration, they couldn't take those rocks out. So we had to extend that wall, which we are actually very happy with. Steve, who is their landscaper, when he is allowed to do a good job, he does an excellent job, and he has provided plenty of good advice to us. That grass did not come in. The back part of the property where you can kind of see there's a bird feeder on that front page and the second rock, that was deemed wetlands, which it isn't. It never really was wetlands. Now that all the trees are down, it's even less of a wetland because it gets sun that it never gets. So what was planted back there never took. We also were supposed to get a new driveway, multiple emails going back and forth. We did not get a base to the driveway put in until December or January of 2019. And then the driveway, I had an email that was dated in May. So the driveway was complete, except we were constantly now having water issues with the water rushing down the driveway every time it rained. And it would go half on our property, half on our next door neighbor's property. So that was an issue. Dave Porter came out in May to discuss that the restoration did not take. That back area looked like a junkyard. You couldn't mow it because it was left roughed up because it was technically wetlands. All sorts of debris all over the place. So you couldn't even begin to mow it without taking your life into your hands. So we had a meeting. There were some people there from Joa. There was also another large oak at the back of the property that was right behind that rock and bird feeder that you can see in that one picture that was now definitively dead, and agreed that we had to have that taken out really before the next step of the restoration would take place. At that point, Joa said they weren't going to take the tree down. It was up to, I guess, the municipal authority or the township to take it down. And they would restore the property, and then any damage that came out of taking that tree down, they would then be responsible for. Dave left the property. Half hour later, I heard our dog fence beeping, which means it was broke for the 3,000th time of this project, only to see that there is now a bulldozer bulldozing the back of our property. Called Dave. I said, well, this was not what we discussed. Dave came back over, had some words with them, and they literally just pulled out of the property, left everything that they bulldozed in a giant heap, and we lived with that for another year. So we did not have use of our backyard again that year. It was a complete disaster. Late September, they did the second restoration. This time they actually planted wetland seed back in the area that they called wetland. That did not take either. This May, and again, I'm just kind of giving you an overview of what happened. This May 5th, which was seriously the rainiest day. I think we actually received more rain that day than the day Ida came. That's when the large oak that we had noted back in 2019 was taken down. Once again, destroying, so you can see the area in the front. That's the path that they came down to the backyard. Complete disaster. They just leave, and we have no yard again for the entire summer. Then some other trees are starting to struggle. I reached out to Dave Porter to say, look, we just want to end this. Like, if these trees are going to come down, we need to take them down now and get our property restored. It is ridiculous. This is now the third summer all through the pandemic, we've been able to take no solace in our own property. It is just ugly and a nightmare. So Dave contacted the township arborist. The township arborist came out, 2 trees that we were concerned about, one of which was completely dead, which was an oak. The arborist did not believe that it was impacted by the project, but I beg to differ because I feel that that tree was struggling. So it was essentially like a cancer patient that then got COVID, and COVID was the project. Killed that tree, but while the arborist was out, noted many other trees that then needed to come out. So we decided to take another tulip poplar out that we felt was struggling. And again, the arborist kind of did not feel that that was really due to the project. So we probably had about 9 more trees taken out, and that is the result of those trees coming out. So our property looks nothing like our property looked back in 2019. And we're just frustrated. It's
So
extreme.
what are you asking us to do?
I'm asking to be made whole. I'm asking that we have been, I don't necessarily know if and I don't mean this
Who
to
did your
be
work? Who put in the sewer?
Joa and Bradley, right? Isn't it Bradley? Joa?
J.O. and Bradley is the authority's sewer contractor. They put the sanitary sewer main in
No,
through
but-
the easement on the property.
Right, through the
The
easement.
sewer lateral was done by Mid-Atlantic Mechanical,
Okay.
who also had some outstanding.
So there were some
Item.
issues from there too, but what you're looking at, like actually when these trees came down in that mess, they actually did not touch the area, and they've actually kind of helped some of what ma'am messed up on our property, because it's sort of some of the stones and everything that they have left behind are now kind of buried in those ruts that you see. And if that's just kind of smoothed out and new topsoils put in,
I just don't want, I mean, what is the responsibility of Mid-Atlantic and what is the responsibility of the
you can actually
municipal authority?
not really, so, I guess
Well,
I'll
can we just, let's have, Dave's been out there a couple of
Yeah.
times.
he hasn't seen this.
I mean,
part.
without
That's
getting
my
into the
second home.
tree.
I've been out there so many
I know, it sounds like it. So without getting
so-
into the tree issue, because,
Without getting into the tree issue in entirety, when the sanitary sewer went through the property, J.O. and Bradley went back, did some preliminary temporary restoration, put some temporary seed down to prevent erosion on the property. Then they came back at a later date and did final restoration.
do they believe they're done at this point?
No, they're on notice for the rear portion of the property. So there's a small pocket of wetlands between the house and the far rear yard. Anything that's not wetlands is technically called an upland area. So that's what I've been referring to it as. When I walked that portion of the property with the Lairdisons, that I agreed 100% with them that it needed to be redone completely.
It looks like the front and the back need to be regraded
Yeah.
and reseeded. And
Everything.
if that's our responsibility, then we need to get it done.
Absolutely. I agree 1,000%. And from what I understand, the timing of where everything is right now, because we were going to do the tree work on the property, get those additional trees out. We agreed to hold off on doing the landscape restoration. We are working with, I know Pam has reached out to several landscapers. I've reached out to another landscaper. That person was out last week. I'm trying to meet with them this week on the property. Mid-Atlantic is supposed to be on their property per agreement with the township. The township was going to revoke their license in the township to do work because they just did project after project and didn't complete all of the restoration. So they're supposed to come back tomorrow to finish cutting down the sanitary sewer cleanouts, put in the right caps for the cleanouts and vent, and scrape off the additional structural, well, not structural, but the fill material that was left on site to fill their septic tanks. They had 2 or 3 septic tanks that needed to be filled as part of decommissioning of their own lot system. So
Has that been done?
that has been done. There was additional dirt remaining. So when Mid-Atlantic completed the the demolition of the own lot system, they took it upon themselves to spread the remainder of the dirt over the backyard through the easement, through beyond the easement area that J.O. and Bradley had already restored. We finally went back out 2 and 3 times with J.O. and Bradley, got them to put the right amount of topsoil in, the right seed mix, got it fertilized. That grass came up and looked fantastic. And then it got completely obliterated during that process. So
But it
that-
would have been obliterated anyway
Yeah.
by the trees that came down.
in hindsight, with the extent of the tree removal, yeah, it certainly would have been.
And who required the tree removal?
So the tree removal.
I know you said there were 9 additional ones that you wanted to have out.
Well, no,
Sure.
when we walked through with the
When
arborist,
we
the
walked through.
township
Yeah.
But
arborist.
as far as
There was-
what we had determined needed to be taken out.
Yes.
The first large oak that came down last year, that was something that I had met with the Lairdisons and J.O. and Bradley and said, look, they don't think that this tree is going to make it. You impacted it with the machine by putting in the sanitary sewer main. He said, well, it doesn't look like it's bad. Do you want to wait to see if it's going to make it? We had the meeting in the fall. We waited till the next spring to see if it was going to make it. It clearly did not recover. So at that point in time, we said, okay, it's got to come down.
And we.
That was
assumed
in
the
20, that was
responsibility.
in 2020, though. It didn't
Yes,
come down
correct.
until 2021.
Okay, but
Yes.
it's down.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
trying to-
down.
You know, we want to get your property back to
Right.
where
Be-
it needs to be from
Beyond,
our
beyond
responsibility.
that one tree, there was a couple of other trees that the Lairdisons had questions about whether they were impacted by the sanitary sewer installation. It was 2 or 3 trees. I know it was a large oak that was leaning in the backyard, which was about 40 feet off of the sanitary sewer main. There was a tulip poplar up near the driveway where the sanitary sewer came through. And then I think that was it. And when I contacted the township's arborist, had him come out and meet to get his opinion on those other ones, he identified several other trees in the rear yard that were likely impacted and had root damage as a result of.
And they're
the
all,
sewer installation.
they hit a million trees with their equipment. They were not
Yeah.
careful at all. There was
Yeah.
no, the arborist asked like, what kind of plan did they have to protect the trees?
Mhm.
There wasn't
Who
anything.
wasn't careful at all?
Joe and
J.O.
Bradley.
Brown.
J.O.
Yep.
So things were just destroyed.
Yeah, and to kind of give you some sort of perspective as to how they weren't necessarily careful, was they have different size machines that they could do the pipe installation with. They use a really large machine to do some of their deeper excavations, or if they have to lift some really heavy objects. They had one of the largest machines on the job installing that sewer through that easement. And we made the comment, and they said, well, it's means and methods of construction. This is what we're using at this time. We're using the other machine on another part of the job. So we have this one available to do the work. So, but yeah.
It's not even 10 yards from our actual house.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do? I still don't
Yeah,
understand.
let's just, so
So-
let's kind of, Pam, let's get to the point where,
What
are we
what
on the
we were
same
charged with
page as
doing
to what
was to
we're,
meet with the Lairdisons, develop a scope that the authority was responsible for, and to go and put that scope out and get quotes and get the job completed. So right now, the tree removal is complete, it sounds like, and beyond that point, we have to meet to go over the other landscaper quotes to get the job done.
But it's, so I had one gentleman come out and give us a quote, and just for the area of of what was technically the wetlands now is the upland area, although he is, and Dave and I talked about this,
Whatever.
he is bringing in an extraordinary amount of topsoil that we agreed was not necessary for that area. But his bill alone, just for that one area, was over 25,000. That did not include the backyard. That didn't include the side of the house or going up to the front of the house.
Which I think is very high. So what we want to do is get a couple of other quotes, compare that, and make sure they're all bidding on exactly the same scope of services to get that restored.
I just, what I don't understand is, I thought we had someone involved in this project that was doing the landscaping necessary.
They
No.
backed out. They're not. Steve was part of this gentleman, Steve, who I said built the back wall, looks very nice. When Joe and Bradley allows him to do the work properly, he
Who's
does.
he? Is he with?
Steve is their
Steve Phipps
landscaper.
is their landscaper.
And Joe and Bradley is kind of putting the stop up to allow the work to
Yeah,
be done that
so-
is reasonably required.
Dave Chilson is the project manager for J.O. Bradley, who was responsible for the entire job. Dave Chilson was responsible to allocate his crews to different areas of the job. Once they come through with the sanitary sewer main, they backfill and restore. Typically, after 90 days, we want that trench to settle to make sure there's no differential settlement in those areas, especially in roads. It's more so warranted in roadway areas than it is in lawn areas. But nevertheless, that landscape crew would come back, smooth everything out, grade it out, rock hound to remove any pebbles and stones and everything, spread topsoil seed, and then put hay down or whatever else, erosion control blanket if it's warranted on a steeper slope, water it, and then that should be the final restoration at that point.
And
Which-
Joe and Bradley, what position are they taking as far as completing this job or giving us a credit? Because isn't that part of our contract?
That
with
is
them?
correct, yes.
Okay.
So
So like, I'm just wondering, can this board make a decision tonight as to what we need to do by way of Joe and Bradley? So that we can then move forward to authorize whatever needs to be done for the.
well, I
Larison's
think
property?
that, I think the
property.
authority had already given direction.
Yeah, I think
as
so
far
too. I
as,
recall.
as what we're gonna do. Dealing with the J.O. and Bradley issue, I think is a separate,
Separate issue.
it's,
Yep.
it's
But
tied into
it's
that. but
not really, because how much do we have to work with? I mean, I'd like to be able to, tell the Larisons that, yes, we can, whatever the lowest estimate of the three, if you're happy with that, you select the lands that we have enough built into our contract with
Well,
Joe and Bradley that we can withhold those funds from.
Yeah, and right now, Rich, don't quote me on the number. I think we're under that contract amount by around $300,000 or $400,000.
Okay, that answers
So,
my question. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
not like we're right up against it that we have to penny pinch everything, but as an authority, as a public entity responsible to spending public dollars, we have to go through that process.
And that's
Pam, are
frustrating.
you happy with the process we're taking by
No,
way of the
it's-
scope?
It's excruciatingly slow.
No.
Oh,
It's
okay,
good.
but you're a little more in control now. Aren't you getting the estimates and trying to?
I am,
determine-
but that's also,
She's now burdened with having to do that.
yeah, so
That's-
it's a
that's
little
the problem.
frustrating. It's a little frustrating that we are coming up against the limits, so I had talked to Dave about, can we treat the upland area as a separate quote from the backyard, side yard, front yard? Because we're gonna go over the 21.5 in a blink of an eye and then have to put it out for
So
public
we
bid.
authorized up to 21.5, is that
Well,
it?
no, the public bidding threshold is $21,000.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So
Okay, I got you.
anything below that threshold, the authority can allow written or telephonic quotes. If you provide
Is
three of
landscaping
those quotes.
alone considered construction, thereby warranting the public bid process?
No, it's
I
just-
don't
I don't
know,
wanna
it's
speak
to
for
a
Mr.
building.
Sheridan.
The statute says to a building. Construction to a building. We're not talking about a building. I question,
gonna
we'll
comment for the
we'll
legal
consult with our,
aspect, yeah.
has the solicitor advised us that this requires the public bid process?
My inclination is that Mr. Sheridan would advise us that would be the threshold regardless of whether it's a building.
Yeah, but it's
Structure per se, or if it's-
construction to a
if it's
building
construction.
because it also pulls in the three main, contractors,
Yeah.
which would not be applicable here. We're just talking about landscaping. I don't know. I would like to make sure that the solicitor chimes in on that issue.
Yeah, so in
But
July, when I
my-
came to the
My
meeting.
suggestion would be that, yes, we do break it up, but I can tell you that if it does have to go through the public bid process, it doesn't matter. You can't break up a project that is required to be publicly bid by breaking it up. In other words, everybody would get around that threshold issue by breaking it up into two parts. So the question is it a public bid project? And if so, it looks to me like we're gonna have to get the three, we'll have to do the public bid process, which
Well, the
is,
public bid's not 3 bids. The public bid, I don't even know how the public bid works. The public bid was, if it was over 11,301 up to 21,500, then I'd have to get 3 bids. And the lowest one would have to be selected. If it's 21,501, and I think that's the correct number, then it has to go out to public bid. And I don't even know technically what that means, how long that's
It's a
gonna
formal bid
take.
process, so you'd have
you
to
need
put together a bid
specifications.
package.
We'd have to put together specifications with our engineer. And then we'd have to have the solicitor put together all the contracts, everything that goes with that, and then advertise it.
And that was talked about in July, and here we are, October. And
Okay,
that's,
well,
so it's an extremely frustrating
hopefully
project.
why don't we do this? Our solicitor is supposed to be here soon,
Okay.
okay? Can we come back to this in new business? Do you mind
Sure.
hanging out, Pam?
Sure.
And then we can get through this agenda.
Okay,
We'll come back and address this issue. I know Dave's got to give his report. Hopefully, the solicitor could answer that question on the public bid process. If it's not an issue, or then we can, let's just move forward and get these bids done. So that you're pleased with the work that needs to be done, and we don't have to worry about that aspect of it
okay.
and hold this up any further.
Okay, and I would just like to make one other statement. So I was here at the last meeting when the other woman was here about her complaints that with her project not being told the truth and getting misinformation. And
Well, that had to do with the statute, and there was a misinterpretation of
Well,
the statute.
I
So-
can't tell you how much misinformation we have received about what's happening
From
on our
who?
project, from everybody that's been associated with this project.
Okay, has
So-
Dave ever given you any misinformation?
Misinformation in the sense that, yes, I certainly thought my property would be restored by now. I thought my property was gonna be
Well,
restored by the end of that summer.
I would think Dave thought it would be done by now too.
Yep.
Pam, we're all very upset about this.
So, well, no one's as upset as
No,
it about me.
I
So-
get that. I get that. And it's just,
You have all
Yeah.
gotten to enjoy your property
okay.
during a pandemic.
But
I
we
have
did not do anything, to
No, you didn't oversee
make
it.
sure
That's
that
the
this
problem.
happened
I
to you.
invited all of you to come out and see it in July, and not one of you reached out to me or came out to the property.
I
to see the
actually did go
destruction.
out to your property. You weren't there, and I did. come
You
out
went
to
out
see
to
it.
look at the Mam property, and you didn't.
No, I
contact
saw
me.
your property. Your babysitter or dog sitter was there.
Yes.
And we called you, and I walked your whole property, so I did see it.
Well, I was under the
And-
impression you were only there to look at the Mam property, the
The
Mam
Mam?
portion of the property. When that's what Suzanne told me, that you were just looking at what Mam had done to the property.
I mean, I looked at the whole property.
You
that's
walked
all I
back
can
to
tell you.
the third
Yes,
manhole?
Yeah,
Okay.
I walked around the property.
All right. Well, I wasn't there, so I don't
All right.
know. No one, and again. It's been
And-
a
and no-
very long, frustrating process.
Trust me, we get that completely. And I think we're just as frustrated as you.
Hey, Dave.
All right. Fund transfer, is this
There's
nothing? Okay. Okay, treasurer's report. Mark,
Yep, no, nothing special.
nothing
We're
special.
good.
Okay, nothing to be approved. All right, as far as payments are concerned, consider approving the bills on check register A dated October 4, 2021, totaling $32,686.16. Can I have a motion? Can
Motion to approve.
I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 10.2, consider approving the bills on check register B dated October 4, 2021, totaling $1,650,606.47. Can I have a motion? Can
Motion to approve.
I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, 10.3, consider approving a payment from the bond totaling $3,201.87 to Herbert MacCombie Engineers for Part 2 permit work for the public sewer project relative to the Camelot Service Area. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 10.4, consider approving a payment from the bond totaling $1,192.50 to Herbert MacCombie Engineers for Part 2 permit work for the public sewer project relative to the Ashford Service Area. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 10.5, consider approving a payment from the bond totaling $1,456 to Michael Sheridan for professional services associated with the 537 public sewer project. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion?
Yep.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consider approving a $160.56 refund to Ramune Green at 3530 Muirwood Drive for an online duplicate payment. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consider approving release number 8 for Lenai Electric Corporation for electrical work associated with Springton Point Pump Station and public sewer project totaling $9,098, leaving a balance of 0 in that. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consider approving release number 9 for Lenai, and I that as well. I'm sorry, I didn't verbalize that. 10.8, consider approving release number 9 for Lenai Electric Corporation for electrical work associated with the Hunters Run Pump Station at the Goshen and the Goshen Road Pump Station and public sewer project totaling $16,499.80, leaving a balance of 0.
Motion
Can I-
to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right. Any questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now on to the engineer's report. Okay, Dave,
Okay.
take it away.
To start off with the public sewer project, we covered during the public comment, most of which I was going to brief the authority on as far as the Ashford service area, save for one other item, which is next on my agenda. As I mentioned, tree removal on the Laderson property is being completed. There still is significant amount of restoration that needs to take place out there. Trying to get a date with one of the landscaping consultants to meet with us out there to review the scope and to get us a bid for that project to supplement the additional bid that was obtained by the property owner. In the Camelot Service Area, we're working with the solicitor to refine the letter for Campus Boulevard commercial properties. Working with Mr. Lafayette on pinning down the addresses for the buildings that need to receive those letters. In the old Masters Pump Station service area, we have begun tree removal to accommodate the electrical installation out there. And that concludes the sewer project update.
Okay. And anything else then? Dave?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is with regard to 321 Crete Lane. I believe that property owner is present. The property is Crete Lane fronts, or behind Crete Lane, the Lewis Run stream flows basically through the majority of Echo Valley. We did obtain easements through all of the properties that, basically all the properties that front on Crete Lane from 323 on up to 311, where the sanitary sewer main kind of splits and heads over to Echo Valley Lane and to Battles Lane. So this property owner did provide an easement to the authority to allow for that main installation through the rear yard. There was also sanitary sewer in the front yard, or along the frontage of the property in Crete Lane. So if you recall, when the sanitary sewer project was completed and was ready, the design was completed and we were ready to start construction, we sent letters out notifying property owners and providing survey stakes for owners to mark the location of their sanitary sewer lateral. We had contemplated that connection point being in the rear yard in the easement. This property owner's sanitary sewer system, the building sewer leaves it comes out through the front of the house, and their system is in the front yard. There's a pool, if you're looking at the house from Crete Lane, there's a pool in the rear yard. Part of the pool deck extends kind of into that side yard to the right of the house. The driveway's on the left side of the house. So when it came time for the property owner to make their connection, engage a contractor, they had their contractor submit an application. The application was reviewed and approved. The contractor scheduled to go out to do the work, and on installing the sanitary sewer lateral, found that they couldn't connect to the lateral stub that was provided as part of the sewer project. That lateral stub was found to be about a foot too high. So the contractor then removed their sanitary sewer lateral work, reinstalled it at a lower percent grade, and still couldn't hit that mark. So I provided a memo to the members of the authority indicating the events that transpired leading up to that property owner's inability to connect by gravity in the front yard. There's also a recommendation in there as to where to accommodate that property owner's connection point, and for the authority to consider cost-wise, the owner is looking for some reimbursement for the additional cost that they would have to incur now that they're not able to connect by gravity to the front yard. So going through the memo that I provided you, I first outlined the original proposed connection point in the rear yard. Whether the owner worked with his contractor to locate the stake to mark where he wanted the lateral connection or not. I did speak with the property owner. He doesn't recall whether he worked with his contractor or not. Whether he did or not, upon constructing the sanitary sewer, J.O. and Bradley, when it came time to install that sanitary sewer lateral off the main, they found that there was an existing water main that was in conflict with where they could run that sanitary sewer lateral. So typically you want to put the sanitary sewer below the water main. They physically could not get underneath the water main because the sanitary sewer was basically right at the same elevation. Typically your water main's at 4 feet below grade. I think we were like 6 or 8 feet below grade where we constructed that line. So they found that conflict. They raised the sanitary sewer lateral to come up above the water main. They did not check, as far as I know, did not check the elevation to make sure that the property owners could still connect by gravity into that sanitary sewer lateral. Full disclosure, our inspector didn't tell them to stop and make them verify that, and did not bring it to my attention. And now here we are, where the time comes to make the connection to public sewer, he's physically unable to do it. So we did go out with a couple of different contractors, looked at alternatives for where to accommodate their gravity connection. If we were to install a new sanitary lateral stub off the main in Crete Lane, we would have to disturb the newly paved streets. We would also have to basically go down the street along the property frontage a little bit farther to be able to get enough fall to avoid the water main and to accommodate the gravity sewer connection. So the quotes that we got for that were about $19,000 and $20,000 respectively for that, which we felt was pretty high, given the original cost for the owner, their contract was around the $6,500 mark. We also had one of the contractors provide an estimate to connect into the rear yard. And that quote was less. It wasn't significantly less, but it was less because what we're proposing is to not disturb the pool deck, to directional drill a portion of that sanitary sewer lateral to avoid conflict with that pool deck. I believe it's a concrete pool deck around the pool with that location. So we're looking at going from about 65 or 70 feet of lateral to like 185 feet of sanitary sewer lateral, which is what the increase in cost would be. So the property owner, he is here if he wants to come up and answer any questions. He's welcome to. I can certainly answer any questions the authority has at this point. But my conversation with the property owner, he's seeking some sort of compensation to be able to complete the gravity connection to the rear yard instead of having to, doesn't want to put a grinder pump in and pump into the front yard. So anything
Did
beyond.
he already pay for
My
the
understanding is he
connection?
did not.
That's
Did not.
okay. And what's happening with that contract? I guess.
That's something that the property owner would have to speak to. What I did was reach out to his contractor to see if they might be able to provide a quote to get into the, to do the additional work to get into the rear portion of the property, and left them a message and haven't gotten a return.
Okay, well, we have your recommendation and we have the homeowner here. So I guess the question is, should we finish going through your report? And then when we're done with your report, take that up at new business as well? Because I feel like
That's-
Pam
That's
already,
fine.
yeah, Pam already started, Pam Larison is here and already
Sure.
started hers. We want to ask the solicitor a question and see if there's any action we're going to take on that matter.
Okay,
And
Yep.
then
Yeah,
I
we
just
can
feel
do
like
this.
we're kind of.
sure. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so-
absolutely fine. My next item on the agenda, and the rest of it is really brief. The Ellis Preserve Sector 1 Phase 2 commercial. You recall they've submitted sewage facilities planning module for that last portion of their development, a copy of which I have not yet received. So we'll be taking a look at that, reviewing that, and reporting back to the authority in review of that document, hopefully by next month. Ellis Preserve Sector 1 Phase 2 residential. Special counsel has revised the agreements relative to the acceptance of dedication. There was one item that did get revised that I disagree with, and I've communicated that with special counsel, and it had to do with acceptance of the RHM line as well as the CDCA lines. My conversations with the DEP has been pretty specific that it was just related to the new CDCA sanitary sewer within that development. Stony Knoll, the 27 lot subdivision that I reported on last month, they have submitted their sewage facilities application mailer that was signed by Steve Neese and returned to the applicant. They've forwarded that to the DEP. The DEP did assign sewage facilities planning modules to the development, which means they're basically modifying the township base Act 537 plan to allow for the development and connection to the public sewer, which is what they're proposing. There was a question at last month's meeting about whether the project was included within the CDCA service area, which upon review of that service area map, it appears that it is. And lastly, on my report is 314 Summit Avenue. That is sort of the ongoing stream bank monitoring, where we have our sanitary sewer main adjacent to a small tributary in the back of the owner's property at 314 Summit Avenue. The owner is concerned that the erosion of the stream bank is progressing and it's going to eventually get into the sanitary sewer trench and cause a bigger environmental problem. We have been monitoring that. We did flow monitoring out there to basically prove there is some infiltration inflow. The bank has not progressed erosion-wise significantly toward the sanitary sewer main. So our recommendation is to include that as a capital project for the 2022 calendar year. That concludes my engineer's report.
All right, and we don't need to take any action on that right now. Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. All right, Steve's not here, but Rich, do we have a manager's report?
No, not tonight.
Okay. Although I do see that in the material sent, you gave us an update on
Correct.
everything, everything financial.
Yep.
All right, new business. So someone's looking for direction? I
Yeah,
would
that
assume.
would be me. At the last meeting, there was 2 properties that were actually approved for a 25% reimbursement.
Yep.
I'm just looking on some guidance for where the dollars actually come from, since it's not a budgeted expense. It's not technically a capital expense because there's nothing we can capitalize. And it's not really an operating expense either. So you kind of have 2 options. The first is, do you want to take it from the SR3 operating fund, which is funded through user fees, or would you like to take it from the SR3 capital fund, which is funded from tap-in fees?
What would be the difference?
The difference is how they're funded. The operating fund is for operations and funded through user fees, and the capital fund is for capital projects and it's funded through the tap-in fees that we collected for the.
I would think that it should come from the tapping
Yeah.
fees.
Okay.
I don't think
I
we need
agree.
to make a motion on that.
You
It's already
wouldn't, yeah,
been
for
approved.
for Rich's protection more than anything,
Yeah.
make a formal motion and have it approved.
Okay, so can I have a motion that and that's called the
SR3 capital.
SR3 capital? Okay. Can I have a motion for the funding source for the 25% reimbursement for public sewer connection properties 102 and 104 Springhouse Lane that was approved at the last meeting? The funding source being the SR3 capital fund. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve, yes, the SO3 into the SO3 capital fund for the 25% of 102, 104 Springhouse Lane.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any old business? I guess we'll
Stick to
bring
new
up
business
these,
now, yeah.
yeah, we'll bring up these issues now. So Pam,
Pam.
I don't think
No,
so,
yours will be
actually,
fast.
because this looks like we've got to ask him quite a few questions. So, because
Yeah.
Pam's already, you've already been before this board. We understand your property needs attention. And we've already approved the, reparation of your
Right,
property. The question we have, and this is for the solicitor, Mike, is whether or not, if this goes beyond that threshold for public bid, is it a public bid project if it is not any work on a building? So in other words, if it's strictly landscaping work, does it need to be publicly bid?
Yes.
So there you have it. So so we're gonna have to start getting, so I guess Pam's question is, Mike, you weren't here, but she did let us know that we are starting to get to that point if we don't break this project up into 2 parts. I think it could be broken up, but I don't know this, I don't want to opine on the statute or anything. So would you like Mrs. Larison to give us a better explanation as to how this, or
Yeah,
Dave
because-
maybe, to break how this project would be broken up and whether or not it could be
Right.
considered 2
Because
projects under the
with-
statute?
Without knowing the breakup, what the way it's viewed is somehow the board trying to avoid bid requirements and making 2 separate projects out of what something is basically a single project. I have familiarity and although I wasn't here earlier from your prior appearances before. So it may be able to be split up between different contractors with different kinds of expertise, if it's what I understand, but maybe you could tell me what the specific.
Explain how the 2 projects, what the 2 projects are.
So my first choice actually. be much faster for us, and we get our properties much more quickly than having to do a public bid. The way my husband and I had presented it to Dave about splitting the project was the area that was originally called the wetlands and is now the uplands had been restored and restored improperly. So I feel that that's a separate area from the backyard, the side yard, and the front yard.
Is it felt that that requires a different kind of expertise or talents to successfully resolve
The
it?
one landscaper that we did have come out is he actually could not handle some of it. It is going to require a large landscaper. It's not someone.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
you.
no, but Dave can
The
speak
the
to it better
answer would
than I
be
can.
yes. If they have to restore any of the wetland areas, that is special expertise. Beyond just doing a lawn restoration, it absolutely would be special.
So that would
expertise.
be a basis to split the cost between that portion of the project. and the
You know,
other
we were
portion.
told that we would have trees replaced. We want screening trees because that back area is a disaster now.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I think there should be trees.
And that
in-
is part of the scope that we
Yeah.
laid out to discuss, you know, specific, and we actually got specific species of trees recommended from John Hosbeck, the township's arborist, with input from the Lairdsons for what it is. It's just a matter of quantity and location. at that point.
And you know, when we want trees, we want actual saplings. We don't want a 1-foot tree.
Right.
Yeah, I would think that's within the scope.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean,
No, absolutely. I mean,
the
that's-
last thing we want is the Lairdsons
No.
in the end, you know, trees being delivered that they weren't
my-
anticipating.
What I envision would be something that would be at least a 2.5 caliber,
Spec is very good at it.
diameter breast height bald burlap
Work for the town.
tree. That's, you know, not a little sapling twig that's, you know,
Yeah.
it needs a tree tube, something that's, you know, typical of a landscape project that has the larger, like, if you wanted to look at some of our pump stations, Camelot Lane is pretty accessible.
Okay.
Crumb Crete Lane is pretty accessible.
But that's
Those are
all-
larger tree species. I mean, I
Okay.
think our evergreens there are 8 to,
But that's
16
all John
high.
Hasbach also, Dave.
yes, yeah. And John is the one that met with us, Mark. Just so we're aware.
I didn't realize you worked for the town also. That's great.
So I just want to clarify, is there any hope that Joe and Bradley is going to do anything at
I
this
did reach
property
out
on
after the last
restoration?
time I met with the Lairdsons. I reached out to Dave Chilson via email and said, when do you plan on coming back to restore the lower portion of the Lairdsons property? And got no response from
Well, I think does it need to be communicated in any way to them that we are now moving on to so that they're on notice that we're moving on to to another alternative, so that they're on notice that there's monies that are going to be withheld from any amounts due and outstanding. So let's make sure they're fully aware of that. And then we move on to the next phase here of, and it sounds to me like from what the solicitor is telling us tonight, that we could include the wetlands as one project and the restoration of the wetlands as one project. The remaining project would be considered a separate project. So when we're getting quotes, and I know this is hard for you, Pam, and I know it takes time to do this stuff and it's frustrating,
So
but
the
it would be, if we could get quotes on both as separate.
Okay.
And whatever we can do to help through our engineer.
So just for the authority's benefit, for clarification, the last time I had met with Pam and J.O. and Bradley out at the property was with one of the foremen and Dave Chilson. Well, Dave Chilson couldn't be there. He had one of his foremen go down, and I believe Steve Phipps was there. And we asked them about the restoration of the rear portion of the property. They said, no problem, we're in the area, we're going to jump on this. I said, there's another area over here that needs to be restored. They got disrupted by another contractor. And I asked J.O. and Bradley to get me a cost for what it would take to incorporate that in. And they declined to provide that additional quote and then have been silent on the rest of the restoration that they're obligated to perform.
Okay, so we do need one more communication with them
Sure.
then to confirm that this means that they are
It
not
should-
intending to do any of the work, including the work that was disturbed by the prior contractor, or the work that was created as a result of the prior
It should
contract.
be made official.
And can we make sure that then Mrs. Laderson is told that, that there's no response to that? I mean, I would give them a couple, 1 or 2 business days to respond, and that's it.
Are we still using J.O. Bradley for the other pump stations? And they're responding, huh? Okay.
In fact, Mark, the same time I asked the questions about Camelot Lane, I asked about the Lairdson's property. I got a response for one email and not the other.
And I just want to be clear, we were very accommodating to them.
Very.
They would say, we're coming through, leave your car up here. We'd move the cars. We'd do all this stuff for them. They wouldn't show up to the point where I would move my car and leave the keys in it and just be like, if you have to move the car, then just move the car. Like, they broke the dog fence so many times. My husband's now an expert at fixing the fence. We've cleaned up so much of their damage. It's insane. Like, at one point, Dave Chilson sent out 2 men to, I don't know what they were supposed to do. There was probably a punch list of items. And they basically told my husband, we're just 2 guys with rakes. Like, and there was major work to be done on trees where there were dead limbs hanging off of it. We were told at one point, well, we would just have to wait till those dead limbs fell off and then just pick them up. Like,
We get it.
Well, yeah, I'm hearing, a couple different things about J.O. and Bradley. I mean,
Well,
that was a
I'm not
bad
gonna be there, so
experience.
it's
And
just-
then the other, you have faith in this guy, Steve, apparently to do a good job. But I mean,
well,
I think,
because it would
I
get
think we
done
have to,
quicker. It
I
would get
realize
done
that, but
quicker.
I don't think
Going a
it
different
doesn't
way,
look
that's
like
all.
it's gonna get done. And then you're gonna be more upset at the next meeting when
Well,
nothing's been done.
We're not going to get on any landscapers docket for the fall. It's going to be very tough to get, because the few that I've called can't get us on. So, and the one that I did have a quote from said, if I don't call him back shortly, I won't even get on his spring docket. So it's.
Can you call that individual and see if we can't get a quote and have it divided up into the 2 projects?
Well, he could only actually do the wetland area. He
Okay.
can't even do,
Or
and that was
maybe
the one that
one
was
portion
over.
of the project can be done.
Yeah, the wetland area. It's not my backyard. I have a child who's graduating high school next year. I want to be able to have a party. I wanted to have a party this year. I'm afraid to allow people to walk on my property because they're going to break an ankle. Every time I walk in my own yard, I have to put on shoes. Every time my dog goes out.
I get it, Pam, I get it. I mean, this
So-
is all a timing thing, and it sounds like everybody is on the same page on the level of frustration here. I understand your frustration and don't think that, I don't understand that. I'm not saying I'm as frustrated as you because I'm not living there, but I don't want you to think that we aren't concerned and we don't share an understanding at least of your frustration. I'm just trying to figure out the quickest way for you to get your yard back. But the most important thing for this board is that you get your yard back and that it looks good in the end. Your focus is timing, and I get that too, but we have to be focused on getting it done properly, so. All right, so the next steps are, Dave, you're gonna communicate to J.O. and Bradley, and Pam, you're going to continue to work with Dave and get these estimates and get it, have them into 2 separate estimates, one for the wetlands, one for the rest of the project,
Okay.
so that we can
Yep.
give someone the okay to move forward.
Okay.
All right, and then we had the gentleman, I'm sorry, your name again. Do you have this little speaking device?
Yeah, it's Josh Abel,
Okay, and what's your address?
321 Crumb Crete Lane.
Okay, and does anybody have any questions on this? I mean, the way I'm seeing it, there's a recommendation from our
Yeah.
engineer.
Yep.
That it looks like are you happy with that recommendation as to this is connecting via the rear yard?
Well, no, I'm not thrilled with the idea, but with the compensation and just the responsibility being placed where it's appropriate, yeah, I'd be happy with that.
Can you give us the status of your current arrangement with the current contractor?
Sure, it's open. They could not tie in, and my yards, there's been a large.
Who was
flooding.
that contractor?
Mid-Atlantic Mechanical,
Okay, so Mid-Atlantic has been out there, did some work,
yes,
didn't complete it,
correct.
which is not their fault,
No, it's not.
arguably. Okay,
No,
it
it's-
hasn't been completed.
Right.
Now, a new alternative connection has to be put in place. And have you paid Mid-Atlantic anything?
No.
Did you sign a contract with them?
Yes,
I guess that would be one of my concerns is, we're gonna need to get some, waiver of liability or what have you under that contract. And I'm not sure how to deal with that, to be quite.
The only other suggestion that I had made to the property owner when I spoke was, getting a quote from that contractor to see if they could complete the work rather than tying it in the front.
Okay.
What would be their additional
I thought-
cost?
I thought that was our contract, the Mid-Atlantic.
No,
No.
no, he's one of the ones who has been doing work. in the
Individual
township.
sewer lateral, individual private owner contract.
Have you reached out to Mid-Atlantic regarding doing an alternative connection or no? Not since it fell through. How is the relationship since that fell through?
sure. No, the relationship with Mid-Atlantic is good. I've spoken to them about potentially having a tie-in in the back, and they're receptive to that and said they would do what they could and work with everybody to make that happen. They've been somewhat accommodating. There's no issues there.
What was the original cost on under the contract?
I believe it was 6,500.
1,500.
And I believe I got a quote to tie into the back was close to 20,000.
Is that from Mid-Atlantic?
But that was previously to this incident. This is before tying into the front.
Okay,
But that was a rough quote, just as an example of why tying into the front made sense.
right. So we don't know what it would cost. So
Yeah,
what,
we had an independent bid from another contractor.
Which
of
was
16,000.
16,000.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's my only concern with going with another contractor is that we have this outstanding liability on the part of this. I mean, we could, we could approve, we could have a motion to, I guess, approve.
Negotiating, but we can't.
No, but I'm just saying for the difference between, so the 16,000, in other words, how much of that would have already have been done by Mid-Atlantic, I guess is my question. So he hasn't put out the 6,500. So we could approve up to 16,000 less 6,500, presuming that we can get, Mid-Atlantic to do it for that amount. That additional amount.
Right.
And with the appropriate waivers in place. Does that make sense, Mike? Are you familiar with this situation?
I mean, I understand the point you're making
Yeah.
about the waivers.
Yeah.
Right now, the agreement is between two private parties, not the
Yep.
authority.
Mhm.
If they want to continue in that relationship, then whatever potential liability we may have, which stem from the original arrangement, it didn't allow him to hook up in the front. So the best.
Perhaps what we ought to do, Mike, and not to cut you off, but I was just thinking maybe get that estimate from Mid-Atlantic first, or since the property owner seems to have a working relationship with Mid-Atlantic, to get that estimate as to what it would cost to pursue the same alternative that we got an estimate on.
I mean,
Um,
ultimately, the homeowner has the responsibility to connect.
Right,
So if it would seem, and I think that's what you're saying, that we compensate the homeowner for the additional costs that are being incurred by virtue of him having to take an alternative route to what was originally planned.
yes,
Then all we're doing is providing compensation for
the difference.
the difference. And because we caused the situation that required the additional work. So we allow him to have that money to contract with the contractor to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, so in other words, perhaps we could just make a motion for the difference.
Well, my understanding
we'd
is
have to cap it up,
Dave
yeah.
has obtained a quote,
Yeah,
but the homeowner has not been able to get. So we don't know what that, if he wants to use Mid-Atlantic and they want to do it and are willing to do it, we need to know. I think you said 20,000, or was that just a ballpark?
That was a previous ballpark. I mean, and speaking of recently, they said that they would be able to work with me since we're having some struggle.
I mean, as long as it doesn't get too far off the estimate that Dave acquired.
yeah,
If all of a sudden it comes back at like 30, and I'm not saying it will, but I don't know if you want to make an amount tonight, cap it, or if you want to wait. I don't know how urgent this situation is to allow you to check with Mid-Atlantic or anybody else to do this work.
Well, the owner has been waiting for some time, and this is holding up his ability. He has plans for, I understand, a building addition.
A driveway and some
Okay.
work to be done on the house.
There's some additional work on the property he wants to do. This is kind of encumbering that ability. It has been some time since Mid-Atlantic did the initial work, and it took some additional time to communicate initially with the authority, collect all the facts, figure out what had transpired, and present it at this point. So I'll leave that up to the property owner to speak to whether or not he able to wait that period of time to be able to gather that additional information.
Another month is what you're saying? Wait another month or?
Yeah, unless,
You know what he said?
would it be another month? Yeah.
Yeah,
It would be at the next.
Yeah.
authority meeting.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know,
I think
yeah,
we
how
have
far-
one scheduled for 2 weeks, but though we often don't do that. I don't know if we even do, to tell you the truth, but we do meet every month for sure.
Right.
First Monday of the month.
So you're suggesting coming back with a quote from Mid-Atlantic and
By
then firming
yeah.
up the numbers. Or just allowing with additional, with your contractor for the 16,000 for the remainder.
Yeah.
Yeah, which could then leave me out of Mid-Atlantic and 6,500 from there. So yeah, I think it makes sense. Could be 2 weeks, you said, or
No, be in a month.
it'd be in a month. And there's no way to work that before the month.
I can't guarantee it, no. But you could go get this estimate from Mid-Atlantic without us taking any action tonight. And then, knowing, I mean, you're already working with them. If you're comfortable moving forward, I mean, then we could take up the motion the next time.
Maybe we could approve the 16.5, and if it goes over, it goes over.
Well, no,
it's
we'd
not
be
on the-
approving,
First off, we
we'd
got
be
that new
approving
Sunshine Act
9,000.
amendment.
Yeah,
We have to be cognizant of that. We can't, things that aren't on the agenda, unless you approve it and then move forward, but it's
Yeah.
not on the. This
yeah,
item's
we'd have
not on the
to,
agenda.
we'd have to demonstrate that we learned of it tonight and that it's new information. Yeah,
And then take a vote on it.
take a vote to
to
amend
add
the
it to
agenda.
amend the agenda to include it, and then decide what you want to do about.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can make a motion and to amend the agenda to include an item that we learned about this evening regarding property located at 321 Crumb Creek Lane to cover costs in excess of the cost to connect to the sewer system via the originally planned connection, which was in the front of the rear of the property.
Front of
and
the property was
The front.
original.
Front of the property, and now moving that to the rear of property, resulting in an increased cost through no fault of the homeowner. Can I have a second on that?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now that the item is on the agenda, can I have a motion to compensate the homeowner of 321 Crete Lane? This again would be through SR3 Capital Fund for an amount not to exceed $9,500 conditioned upon the receipt of information relative to the total cost of the project, including the work that's already been done. 5 Mid-Atlantic. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns about the way I worded that motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now you can go out and get your estimate, and you know that you've got the difference between the two. Okay, so the 6,500 would be on you. Anything above that would be covered by us up to the 9,500.
Okay, so I'm just concerned that, say, Mid-Atlantic wants to charge me 6,000 for the front or 5,000, and then another 16,000 to tie in. You're only saying you'll cover that additional 9.
Right, then that's your cue to say, okay, got to go
Okay.
back to the drawing
Next
board.
month, right, and then I just come back. Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Items for next agenda. Mike, why is that on the here? Items for next agenda, is that just an empty spot? I don't know. Number
That
15.
was when we would, so that would be, if you chose to handle this issue the next meeting. it
Oh,
would be
gotcha,
some-
gotcha.
It would just be a place for the board to give us directions to put an item on the next agenda, so we didn't have to amend the agenda on the fly.
Gotcha. Very nice. Okay, well, I think we dealt with
But,
that.
so you know the process, and we were just talking about it. So because the agenda was amended under the new amendments to the Sunshine Law, it has to be reposted on the website.
Yep.
And on the building to show the amendment was.
Okay, I
And you
apologize for
covered the
making more work
circumstances.
for
You
everybody.
covered that well.
Okay. Whoever's in charge of doing that, I
It's
apologize. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, all